Igniting the light through highs and lows, we'll stand as one. Our legacy a tale that's just begun. Together we roar, together we roar. Detroit Lions will rise, with our hearts full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. So let's lift our voices, let's turn it up loud. For the love of the Lions, we'll always be proud.
All right, Happy New Year, everybody. It is January 1st. It's a new year. It's going to be a new team here in a couple of months. The season's over. We have one game left, so technically it's not over, but it's over. So we just got to deal with it. Let's park all that BS in 2025. We'll just leave it there, and we're just going to move forward as much as we can. I know we have to talk about the Bears tomorrow. That's probably what we'll save a lot of the matchup for. We'll have a little bit today. Today's just conversation, man. It's conversation, what's going on around the league. A couple of things popped up last night. I dropped an article, I don't know, 2 o'clock this morning. We'll probably talk about that a little bit and see what else is in store for us today. But welcome in. Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully you can hold firm to your New Year's resolutions if you do them. I personally don't. Now, I said it the other day that I was going to have some this year. I changed my mind because I never do it. And the reason why I don't do it is because if you have to wait for the first of a year to do some New Year's resolutions to try to fix something, that's just really not the answer for me. I'm trying to do it all year, each and every day. One day doesn't make a difference. But what all the difference to me is each and every day, this team has to work towards something. It doesn't matter if it's January 1st, March 1st, June 1st, it doesn't matter. They're going to be working towards something in 2026, and that starts, well, I'm sure it started this season, but it starts now for sure. So let's get it rolling. We'll be back in 17 seconds. We'll kick it off.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, good morning, Eric, and big shout out to Roger Olowski. Just dropped $10 super chat in the bucket. It says Happy New Year. May your year be filled with happiness and Lions victories. Thanks for your hard work, Will and Eric. And good morning to you, Roger. Happy New Year to you as well, and each and everybody that'll be joining us today. It'll probably be a very, very, very light morning, but it is what it is. We've got some goodies. They're just going to miss it. What's happening with you, Eric?
Yeah, they can always watch it later. You know what? We have a resolution for the show today, a New Year's resolution. We're going to have our best show of the year today.
Okay.
So there it is. For 2026, this is going to be our best show of the year.
God,
Right
I hope
now.
not.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
you know, well, I get it. It is the best
Yeah.
show of the year because it's
Yeah.
it's the first show of the year.
It's the only show of the year.
Yeah. Oh man,
So it's got to be the best.
I was up late last night trying to finish this article, and I just couldn't let it go. I don't really ever do anything on New Year's, or at least I haven't in a long time. Used to travel, used to go to places, but the last few years just really haven't done a whole lot. But yeah, I'm not a drinker or anything, so it's like I'm not out partying with the masses. So decided to watch movies, and I watched Avatar 2, and then today we're gonna go watch Avatar 3.
Yeah, don't tell me about it.
I won't, but I had to get brushed up on it, you know, to kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, what did I miss? What did I forget? I forgot how good the Avatar movies really are. And then watched Formula One the night before. That was a really good movie. So if you haven't been able to see it yet, I would advise to go see Formula One. Really, really good movie. All right, so today I do have some interesting things going on around the NFL that I wanted to get into this morning. And yeah, that's funny. King SJ says, it's been too long, guys. You haven't done a show since last year. That's too funny.
I have a quick topic I'd love to start with.
Yep, I want you to, go ahead and get that one out of the way. And then I got
My
some
surprise one.
things going on around the league that may surprise some people as well.
Okay. So last night, Terry and Arnold made a post
Mm-hmm.
that he had to have a second surgery.
Uh-oh.
Now, is that a second surgery on his shoulder? Is that a shoulder or a knee, a finger, a ligament somewhere else? What is this surgery? We have no clue what it is. He has not told, as far as I know, no one knows why he's having a second surgery, what it's for, or if it's on this shoulder again. Maybe they didn't fix it right the first time. Well, I have got to say, I am so disappointed in Keyboard Warrior Lions fans online. I saw there was 159 comments on this post by Terry and Arnold. So I start reading the comments, and about 50% of them are just people getting on there saying he's a bust and that him and Rakestraw are both injury prone and they never see the field. And did you throw a flag on the surgeon for screwing up your surgery? And they don't even know if it's another surgery on his shoulder or if it's somewhere else. And all these people calling him a bust and saying he sucks anyway, and he's not big enough, and he's not the prototypical size, and all this garbage by very uninformed Lions fans that just think he draws a flag on every single play. Very disappointed in that, seeing that last night. Did you see anything about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the surgery is. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I just dropped another comment in there because I did not comment on it yesterday. But let me just roll through some of these.
Yeah, they're awful.
I mean, you get through like the first dozen or so, and
And there is a lot of people saying, hey, prayers up, I hope you heal fast and that kind of stuff. But
yeah, like this one says, Sheila Ford Hamp, some fake,
yeah,
some fake account here says, F the surgeon who did it. All the glory to God. What? What? I don't get it.
I don't either.
I don't understand it. And then you have congrats on the new manhood, right? Saying that he had a transition surgery.
Jesus God.
Let's see. What's the next one?
Yeah, fans are just dumb. Yeah, before he got injured, he was performing at one of the top cornerback levels in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he had his good days and bad days. I think like anybody else, and I think again, when you are the sum of your parts and pieces, you can't expect everybody to play to their best level. I mean, I think what's forgotten about with Terry and Arnold here is that he probably should have never come back.
Yeah.
You know, when he was initially injured, and I think I kind of put that in my article a little bit last night too, at least I spoke about it to a degree, that his nature of injuries in 2025, he probably should have just stayed out. And, the other day when I told you I learned a lot about Jamo and I learned a lot about Terry and Arnold on Terry and Arnold's podcast with Cam Newton.
I haven't watched that.
Well, let me just kind of give you the Cliff Notes version. Tyrion was saying that, he was battling injury all season. And the only reason, this is my take off of his take. The only reason why he really came back was because the team was, for lack of a better term, forcing him to play. Like it was team first and not player first. And he said as much, that it was team first. He didn't say it from the perspective that I put the team first, so I went in there and played. No, it was I didn't have enough rest. I didn't have enough rehab. I was still injured, but it was team first. And I needed to go in there and play, being forced to play. That's what I gathered from it. Y'all can go watch it for yourself, but that's what I gathered from it, that he was kind of forced to play, was not given enough time to recover the first injury. Obviously, the second, major injury, which, happened when he laid the wood on that dude. I forget which game it was. Took that guy out, and then the guys on the bench were like, oh, that's how you're going to play today? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And that's when he was done. It was that major hit that he laid. He shouldn't have been in. He's playing injured. And I think that is, if Dan Campbell is forcing his guys to play injured, that's a problem. That is a major problem. And I don't think it's ever worth it. If he was already injured to the point where it didn't matter, like he couldn't hurt it any more than it was, okay. But I think that we're all smart enough to know that the more you continue to bang on something that is broken, it's not fully healed, the worse it's going to get. And maybe the worse down the line it could become. Shoulder injuries for a corner, oh man, like they could be nagging the rest of your career. And that's what we don't want to see with a young, promising corner, that he's going to have a nagging shoulder injury. They shut Ennis Rakestraw down right away. He had surgery right away, and he didn't come back at all. Maybe he could have after several weeks. I still don't know the full scope of what the injury was.
I wonder if their injury was the same thing.
It could have been. I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Whether you blow up your shoulder in many different ways. Whether it's labrum, whether it's bone, clavicle. I mean, there's so many different parts and pieces over here.
Yeah.
I mean, the scapula and everything that kind of folds into the AC joint. There's so many different things going on that could lead to severe issues down the line. But what I am sick of, and this is, God, I hope we can get away from in 26, and I know it's not going to happen, but I can have wishful thinking. This fan base has got to do better. And you're right. You're spot on with it, because we have been so downtrodden of a franchise for so long. And then we finally get a taste of success. And for those that really thought that we had arrived, that we were supposed to win it now, I'm sorry. I think you're totally mistaken. Because where we were in 2023, we were not supposed to be there yet. When you look at the history of the league, where the team came from, they were a complete rebuild in 2021. Finished really strong in, matter of fact, let's just go through my article real quick, because that kind of explains it. Let me just pull this in here. Apologize, it's a little bit small, but I'm gonna go right to what I call the evolution of grit. And it's a 5-year war. 2021, the culture shock. So I say, remember 21, the 3-13-1 start. We were the lovable losers. The team that played hard but couldn't close or couldn't finish. But even then, you could see it that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes were planting seeds. They didn't just strip the roster, they stripped the entitlement, they stripped the culture and identity down to the studs, and then poured a foundation made of pure concrete. The season wasn't about winning games, it was about learning how not to lose your soul when things got hard. We saw a team that fought for 60 minutes. Regardless of the scoreboard, that was the first row of seed planted. And what I mean by that is, kind of quite simply what I just stated, but let me check my audio real quick. Yeah, my audio seems a little bit low. What I mean by that is, that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, they're laying their seeds, right? They're laying their foundation in trying to build this team from the inside out, which is build the identity, build the core. Let me get back to this. Build the core, rules and how this team is going to be governed and, what the culture is supposed to look like. That takes a little bit, right? It can't happen in 1 year, but you bring some guys in like Alex Anzalone that can spread that same seed, right? Help those plants grow. You germinate the seeds and you kind of help that culture propagate. In every single year, it gets, taller and bigger and more fruit. And it just so happened by 2023, we were bearing fruit already. Like, you look at I don't know if it's a cherry tree or a peach tree or whatever, that they usually don't bear fruit for like 5 years. We were bearing fruit in 3 seasons, like totally unlikely. And it happened. But then 2022 happened too. And that was the awakening. This season was the shift. It was the 9-8 finish that proved that Detroit could kind of control games. There at the end of the season, we out-tough opponents. We closed in the fourth quarter. It was the first real evidence that the rebuild wasn't theory. It worked. The young core became the identity. Amon-Ra St. Brown set the standard with his relentlessness. Penei Sewell became the enforcer up front. These weren't just good players, right? They were the foundation of a new culture. I failed to mention Jared Goff in this. I should have. The coaching staff, they also grew. Early mistakes turned into trust and aggression, right? Dan Campbell leaned on his guys. The locker room responded. The team started playing with conviction instead of hope. Then came the Week 18 at Lambeau. All right, the night that everything changed. That's for me where everything changed with this team. Eliminated earlier in the day, Detroit still walked into Green Bay and took the game from a desperate Packers team. That win buried the same old Lions narrative. 2022 became the spark that ignited everything that followed. And I call it the awakening because I feel like that is when this team, this organization, this coaching staff, the players that you were starting to assemble, that is when they woke up. Like, okay, we can trust in our coach. We can trust in the coaching staff. And we did make changes from Anthony Lynn to, Ben Johnson, yada, yada, yada. So things were changing and changing for the better. Give me your comments on the first 2 seasons. I want to do something about this heat because I can hear it.
Wow, okay. Well, the first season, man, we were just the lovable Lions,
Lovable losers.
Yeah, the lovable losers. We were the team that everybody picked on. It was easy. Brad and Dan took over one of the worst rosters ever assembled. It's amazing that they even went 3-13-1, that we even won a game, because we went 11-1, I think, before we even won a game. Second season, we keep the Packers from going to the playoffs, and we go 9-8. But we started that season 1-6, and Sheila Hamp had to get up to the podium and say, "I believe in these guys. I believe in what they're doing. We're gonna stay the course." And I'm sure glad she did, because if she wouldn't have done that, I don't know if things would have turned out the way they did. Because if she would have fired everybody after that 1-6 start in 2022, imagine where we'd be today. I don't think we would have had 9-8. I don't think we would have had 12-5, and I don't think we would have had 15-2. We would have had a bunch of not even close to that. It probably would have been a whole bunch of 8-9 and 7-10 records.
Quick shout out to Trace in the chat. Dropped $20 in the super chat bucket this morning. Says good morning to everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks Will and Eric for this past year. Here's to a great start with the new year. Go Lions, man. I couldn't appreciate you more, Trace. You've been a big part of this channel since day one, and here we go again, man. We're gonna be really it's my third year. It'll be our third year in October, fourth season when we get into the new season. Yeah. Accelerator, yeah. Dan Campbell's not going anywhere. I mean, like you're spot on. You know, people are nuts to think that Dan Campbell's getting fired. He ain't going nowhere. People are nuts thinking that Jared Goff is getting can't do it, won't do it. It would paralyze this team. I don't think people understand that. It's the people that don't know football, that don't know how contracts work, that just don't understand it at all. They probably barely understand the rules of the game. This team would be paralyzed if they let Jared Goff go without a major trade. Then that's the only way that it would happen, and I don't see that happening. And Dan Campbell said as much. It's not happening. You know, anytime they've said something about Jared Goff, it's come true. So 2023, you get out of 2022, right? You start to win a lot of games. You finish that year 8-2. We knocked the Packers and Aaron Rodgers out of the NFC North playoff race. Aaron out of the NFC North completely. And then the standard, right, is 2023. That's the standard. A 12-5 record, the first division title in 3 decades, and a postseason run that turned Detroit into a living, breathing earthquake. I will never forget, Eric, when I walked into that Rams playoff game in Ford Field. Not only was it minus like 30 out, and I was frozen in like a half a mile, but that place was vibrating. I mean, it was shaking.
There was chants for 3 hours before the game that never stopped until the game started, and then they kept going during the game.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think that taste of victory, that taste of success, it put and gave fans kind of this false sense of hope and security that we have a team that should be winning a Super Bowl. Yeah, we could have that season because the rest of the league they weren't standing up to us, you know, defensively, you know, offensively, we were able to do whatever we wanted to do. But defensively for us, we weren't there yet. Not even close. And people blaming Aaron Glenn when Aaron Glenn was never the problem. You see, the problem was always personnel. We didn't have the personnel yet. This is the 3rd season after a gut job. Now, you've seen new coaches, new GMs, you know, make it, you know, further or have success early, but they didn't gut the team. They just retooled the team a little bit. They didn't tear it down to the studs. Hell, the Bears didn't even tear it down. They just retooled a little bit. And a lot of that was done before Ben Johnson got there. So 2023, the Lions didn't just win games. We detonated decades of doubt. Ford Field became a cathedral of noise, a place where generations of frustration finally were exhaled, man. It just, we were screaming to the mountaintops every single game inside Ford Field. Now, when we won our first playoff game in 30 years, it wasn't just a victory. It was just a release, man. I mean, I cried. A lot of people cried. There was tears of joy everywhere. If you were in that stadium, it just felt amazing. But think about that for a moment. That was the first time we've been able to do that in 30 years. What would have ever given you the idea that we belong to stay there the next season or even the next season after that we were actually there, that we've done enough? The NFL is not easy, and it's not as easy to stay relevant. It takes time. If you look at what the Chiefs have done, they built the team through the draft, and they've done it over many, 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 many years. If you look what the Bills have done, they've built the team through the draft. The Eagles, they built the team through the draft. It takes time, right? And it takes at least 4 drafts to build both sides of your team to hopefully be relevant if you've hit and they stay healthy. Well, Brad hit. A lot of them stayed healthy, but not enough of them stayed healthy enough. Obviously, 2024, we'll talk about the health, but the city just felt alive in 2023 in a way that it hadn't in half of a lifetime, but all of my lifetime. This was the year that the nucleus proved that they were elite. And that core foundation of players that Brad brought in and Dan Campbell developed, they were the nucleus that we have today. We had the offense, we had the swagger, and we had fought through the noise, but more importantly, we saw that the culture that Dan Campbell had built, the maturity in the front office, Brad Holmes finding gems where others saw nothing. We finally arrived, right? We are there. We've got a team. We're building it forward. 2024, dominance and heartbreak, right? Then came the cruelty of 2024, the football gods allowing this team to finish 15-2. And I say allowing because we had no business being 15-2. We probably didn't even have any business being 10-7, to be honest with you. This is the season that haunts us. But it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. This wasn't a fluke. That was the Lions playing at their ceiling. We were the best team in football, period, offensively. But the football gods demanded a toll, losing Aiden Hutchinson, and then key defensive linemen, linebackers, and eventually secondary pieces didn't just hurt, it robbed us of a fair fight in the divisional round against Washington. It was supposed to be the Super Bowl year. By many accounts, everyone thought that was our year because we went 15-2. But we didn't have a team. Everyone was on IR. I don't know where we thought we were going to win or how we were going to win. It's a great story, but that's about it. It was never meant to be. We tore through the league with the franchise best 15-2 record. We looked unstoppable, but make no mistake, the injuries were not excuses. You simply cannot fight a war without soldiers, and the Lions did not have their soldiers, right? They had some fill-ins. We didn't have soldiers. 2025, this one's a bit long, so I'm gonna cliff note it. Battle tested or hangover? What was 25 all about? What does this season mean at the end of the year? Well, the end of the year was yesterday. The end of the league year is in February, but it was a season that just felt hexed from the opening week. The injury bug didn't just bite this team, it settled in, it infested the locker room for a second straight season. The inconsistency was maddening. There were flashes of brilliance, but without a healthy offensive line and with key defenders constantly rotating in and out, the rhythm had just never taken hold. We never got into a rhythm. Brian Branch, the heartbeat of the secondary, lost to Achilles. Kirby Joseph's devastating knee injury news. And then Sam Laporta's severe back trauma cast real doubt over their futures in football. Joseph's in particular. I think that Laporta will be okay, and I think Brian Branch will be okay at some point. Terrion Arnold, the ascending first-round corner, was limited all season by lingering injuries before ultimately shutting it down for shoulder surgery. And it's Rakestraw, the second-round pick, expected to play major snaps in 25, never got the chance. And for the second straight year, he was effectively redshirted, this time after shoulder surgery ended his season before week 1. And then came DJ Reed, the free agent stabilizer for the secondary, who missed 7 weeks with a grade 2 or grade 3 hamstring injury, initially believed to be out for the season. He returned in week 12, but it's been very clear he wasn't fully recovered. The engine of this team, the offensive line, it was hit hard, just as hard. Week after week, another piece fell. Taylor Decker re-injured his shoulder. Penei Sewell battled through multiple in-game injuries, missing snaps but never games. Clearly fighting through pain all season. Christian Mahogany broke a bone in his fibula in week 9. He returned week 16, only to suffer another lower leg injury in week 17. Graham Glasgow began the year with a minor knee injury in camp. It resurfaced later in week 15, but it cost him week 16 and limited him to two more snaps in week 17, but he's supposed to play in week 18. The list goes on, right? It goes on and on and on and on. I anticipated a 15-2 version of this team returning in 25, ready to shred the league. Never to go 15-2, but just a version of this team. On paper, the depth should have been stronger after 24, a year where second, third, even fourth string players logged meaningful snaps and became battle tested. They did. But instead, we are watching the playoffs from the couch this season. A sleeping giant forced into an unwanted hibernation. But adversity has a way of revealing character. It breaks the fragile, but it hardens the resilient. And this team, this city, it's never been built from fragile stock, ever. And so I don't expect it. I don't expect it to break this team. 2026 is the breakout, right? The rest of the NFL is misreading the moment. Even parts of the Lions' own fan base is misunderstood about where this team is headed. They think that Detroit's window is closed, and they think that the grit era was a cute story, a temporary spark, a flash in the pan. And they are wrong. Brad Holmes has built this roster with long-term vision and surgical precision. The cap is tight, but it's clean. The core remains intact, and the roster will once again be reinforced with a fresh wave of draft capital. 2026 isn't the start of a decline, it's the apex this entire build has been leaning toward. The 2025 season forced stars off the field and pushed the depth into the fire, and that's where the truth emerged. We saw once again how exceptional Brad Holmes is at identifying talent and how many true fighters exist at the bottom of this roster. Dan Campbell didn't lose the locker room, like some have said. He's more so welded it together. But now comes the payoff. The 2026 Detroit Lions walk into the next season with the culture building of 21, the awakening of 22, the standards set in 23, the heartbreak amid dominance of 24, and the hangover of 25 that hardened and battle-tested this team once again. Jared Goff is the quarterback who has seen every storm. Dan Campbell is the head coach who has lived every scar. And Brad Holmes built a roster that has already survived the worst that the football gods could throw at it. This team has learned a lot over the last 5 seasons, and they have had enough of the what could have been moments. The rest of the NFL, especially the NFC North, is praying that the Lions are broken. They're hoping the injuries finished us, that the momentum is gone, that the Detroit Lions' rise was temporary. But they're about to learn the hard truth. The nucleus is intact, the mission is sharpened, and at this time, the Lions are coming back to take what belongs to them. So welcome to your 2026 Detroit Lions fans, because I think that this year will be the year we're going to break the mold. And we're going to finish on top. And the haters be damned. Jump off the bandwagon now because we don't watch you. I said a lot, Eric. What do you want to say?
Yeah, and that goes right along with a couple of the things I worked on for today. And I made a couple of posts about the Detroit Lions this weekend. I got a lot of engagement from it. And I said that if the Lions win this next game and the Vikings win their next game, the Detroit Lions will have a winning record at 9-8, and they will be playing a 4th place schedule, playing the Cardinals, the Giants, and the Titans. And everyone got online and laughed at me when I said, what a 2-year span this is for the Lions, going from first to worst. We're now going to go worst to first in 2026. And you wouldn't believe how many people got on and told me I'm dead wrong. It's not going to happen. Well, according to a lot of people that are not from the Detroit Lions, not Detroit Lions fans, there's some big confidence coming for the Detroit Lions in 2026. I really believe if we can just get this offensive line back on track, and even if it's 3/4 of what we had for an offensive line last year, it should make for a completely different season, because we were not that far off. This team was so close this year to being a much, much better team. How many games did it come down to one ref call?
Yeah.
A whole bunch of them. So if we can just get over that little tiny bit of hump, we'll get back to being 13-4, 14-3, 12-5. We'll get back into the playoffs, It's looking like 12 games is about what you need now to win your division. And I mean, the Bears are going to win it with 11 wins this year.
Well, I kind of said that in the preseason, or not preseason, in the offseason. I said, I think 12-5 is the benchmark to win the North. 14-3 would be the benchmark to win the 1 seed. That was my prediction, and I felt that the Lions could go 14-3 this year. They obviously fell way short, but when you look at this, kind of what you're saying here, the Lions have 8 wins, the Bears have 11, and they've already clinched. We are 3 wins away from being, where the Bears are right now. Now they didn't have the luck that we did, meaning we actually got to win the North. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for saying this, and that's okay. I would much rather win that damn game and be able to celebrate winning the North in the locker room with my team than sitting on a couch 1,000 miles away watching a team lose and saying, cool, we won the North. Because they lost, and they lost, and they lost. That's not the same as what the Lions have already done.
No.
They've gone and they've snatched it away from teams. And that takes a lot more, pride and gumption and hard work and the right calls and battling the refs and everything else than just sitting on the couch. And that's why the Bears will be bounced in week 1 of the wild card.
And the Packers.
And I don't care who they play. If they play each other, then obviously only one will be bounced. But
yeah. I think if they play each other, I think the Bears win that game.
So do me a favor. Here's that article. Please share it. I'm going to go ahead and extend the sign up challenge, but it's now 6 months. You had up until last night to sign up, and you would have got a year free on DetroitFootballJournal.com. Now it's 6 months. So for the next couple of weeks, if you sign up, share it with some friends, you'll get a free 6 months. Don't put a credit card in. If you want to support the publication, by all means, go for it. But I'm trying to give people an opportunity to have 6 months. But again, we'll of course accept your donations. It's just I want to give it away. That's the goal. So far, I've got about 50 people to give it away to, which is great. I watched the views and reads double in the last week, which is great. That's the whole goal. There's a lot going on around the league right now, and you mentioned worst to first. I know that I've mentioned it in the last couple of weeks that every year there's teams that go from worst to first, and there was 2 this year. There was absolutely 2. So let's recap a little bit of some NFL news when we come back.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, so 2025 season, you had 2 teams that went from worst to first. Every year you have it. And this year, Chicago and New England won division championships this season after finishing last in their divisions in 2024. In 20 of the past 23 seasons, from 2003 to 2025, at least one team finished in first place in its division the season after finishing last or tied for last place. With a win on Saturday night against Seattle. With a win on Saturday night against Seattle, San Francisco will clinch the NFC West after finishing last in the division in 2024, earning their 3rd division title in the past 4 seasons. Now, what's crazy to me is that'll end up making 3 teams.
Yes.
That'll be 3 teams going worst to first.
And
Now let's make it a little bit deeper here. With a win Saturday against Tampa, the 4:30 game, or an Atlanta loss, Carolina will clinch their first NFC South Division title since 2015 after finishing tied for last in the division in 2024. So that'll be 4 teams going worst to first. Pretty impressive stuff, but there's no reason why the Lions can't do this next year. I mean, like I said, our nucleus is intact. We still have a core. When you think about it, Amon-Ra St. Brown is what, 26 years old? Penei Sewell's 25. Jared Goff
all locked up.
Yeah, Jared Goff is 30. See, Aiden Hutchinson, I believe, is 25.
Yep, just turned 25.
And let's see, who else did we lock up recently? Derek Barnes, I think he's in the 26, 25 in that range. Anyway, the core, right? The core nucleus of this team are all young. Jared Goff is the oldest one on the squad as far as being the core nucleus, but he's not old by quarterback standards. He's right now in the prime of his career. And he's been playing at an extremely high level the last 3 seasons. There's no reason why that can't continue in 2026.
He has gotten better every single year with Detroit. You look at his stats. His stats this year are better than last year. Less interceptions, more touchdowns, more yards. And he's still got a game to go.
Yeah.
I'll never understand the Goff hate. And yeah, people are very much in their feelings still this week. Lions fans, especially ones that don't watch this show all the time.
Yeah, it's all good. I got to look at something real quick.
Mm-hmm. But since we're on this subject, the Detroit Lions have been compared with every 8-8 team since 1978, because it used to be 16 games, not 17. And they've been compared to every 8-8 team since 1978 using DVOA, and that stands for Defense Adjusted Value Over Average, a stat that measures overall team efficiency instead of just wins and losses. And according to the numbers, the 2025 Detroit Lions rank as the second best 8-8 team ever recorded, posting a strong 21.7 DVOA and finishing number 3 in DVOA in the NFL in 2025. So according to DVOA metrics, the Detroit Lions were the number 3 team this year. So injuries got them, ref calls got them, and bad luck got them this year. They are so much closer than anyone can even imagine to being that breakout team in 2026. And that's a hill I am going to stay on for the entire offseason. This Detroit team is so much closer than anyone can imagine, and they are going to they will absolutely explode on the scene in 2026.
So I'm going to give JR Get D8, whatever the hell name that is, and Angus 1031. I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes of fame, or 15 seconds of fame today. Okay. Let me ask you, like, do you even know who the Lions have drafted? Do you know who Brad Holmes has drafted? Because when I see comments like Brad Holmes needs to draft good players, not players with potential crap, I don't think you know who we've drafted. And then when I see comments like right after he said we are good, we made a video cooking on it for a couple of hours, so I don't know what you did. You might not heard. I have no English grammar. It's
the "we're good" statement. Dan Campbell said it one time about Zadarius Smith, and everybody thinks that Brad has said it a million times.
Brad never said it.
We're good.
Yeah, Brad never said it. So
No.
it was Dan Campbell talking about not needing another edge going after Zadarius Smith. They already knew what was going on with that whole situation. So for all of the I'm just going to say it, morons out there that thought that Zadarius Smith was the answer, you were wrong. Now, I would love to see you all raise your hand and say, I was wrong. But you know what's going to happen? None of y'all sissies are going to say it. Instead, you're going to place your anger and hate on something else instead of admitting that you were wrong.
Well, I'll tell you, somebody that was right, it was you and me, because the entire time, that whole drama, the whole offseason, the whole everything this year, we said he was not coming back, and he did not come back.
Yeah. Well, I knew he wasn't coming back. I mean, my guy told me as much. I just couldn't say that. Right? So, okay, Manu, Broderick, Martin, and Rakestraw. Are those the only three that you can point out in the last 5 drafts?
And Hooker.
Okay, add Hooker to the mix. Are those the only 4 that you can say in the last 5 drafts?
Okay. Now go back in the last 5 drafts and look at how many all-pro and pro bowlers we have and compare that to any other team in the NFL.
Right. So let me finish my thought. 5 drafts, over 35 players drafted. Right? Here, let me just make sure. Lions drafted. I'm going to give you 15 seconds of fame, then I'm walking away from this. Because I've spoke about this many times. And I know I'm not wrong. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Let's go back to 2021. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 36 players drafted since 2021. And if you want to throw 4 players in there, that is a 90% hit rate. It's actually about an 88.9, so 89% hit rate by Brad Holmes. 89%.
I'll take it.
89%. Here's the crazy thing. Out of that 89%, we've had a few other players that are no longer with the team. All right, you've got Jamar Jefferson, he's gone. Ifeatu Melifonwu, he's gone. Chase Lucas is gone. James Houston is gone. James Mitchell, Antoine Green, Colby Sorsdahl, Hendon Hooker. And that's it. So 8 players. That is a 78% hit rate. 78%. If you were a GM in the NFL and you're hitting 50%, you're God.
Yeah.
Absolute God. And he's hitting a 78%. 28% more than most GMs will ever hit. But it's not just that. It's the fact that you've got guys like Christian Mahogany, a 6th-round pick who's starting at left guard and plays pretty damn well as a 6th-round draft pick. Now, he's the only player out of the 2024 draft that has been able to do much because Terry Arnold's been hurt. But when he was in the game, he was probably a top 30, at least corner in his young career. You can't be mad at that. You can't expect everyone to be Sauce Gardner in their first year. How's Sauce Gardner doing now? He's trash buckets. So it takes time. Darius Slay took 3 years to develop, took 4 years before he started playing well. You can say it about every corner. Few and far between hit the ground running and are actually top corners in the league. It takes time. And depending on what schedule you're playing, depending on the opponents that you're playing, all of that matters too. Because you might not be going up against great players. The Lions have gone up against the best receivers in the league this year. Bar none. The best. And he's gone in and hung with most of them. So you can't hate on Terry and Arnold. Ennis Rakestraw's been hurt. You don't even know what he's going to be. And you can't get mad at Brad for a player getting injured. Like, you can't. You can't stop injuries, number one, and you can't predict injuries, number two. That is not Brad's fault. That is football. It happens. And Giovanni Manu, He's a backup. He's not a starter. So let me ask you something. You have your starters. What are you worried about Giovanni Manu for? He's not a starter. You had Taylor Decker. So what's the hate on Giovanni Manu? Because you wanted a different player? Well, what about your backups in the future? You don't want backups? You don't want depth? You've seen what happens when teams go through a ton of injuries, right? You don't win 15 games last year by not drafting players like a Giovanni Manu or a Colby Sorsdahl, when you needed him to step in, or a James Houston when you needed him to step up and step in because of injury. Right? You don't make it that far unless you have depth. And quite honestly, our free agency depth has been better than our drafted depth. The last thing I'll say on this, and you can go look it up. You know how many times I said this, Eric. 15% of third-round draft picks will ever start in the NFL. And 3 of those 15% will ever become elite players. And it gets way worse in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round. So I don't know what it is or who it is that you're listening to, but they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You go look at any other team, and Eric and I said this yesterday, I'm now going to make this a project of mine so I can go out and dispel all of the idiocy out there. And I'm going to go look at every other team's draft picks, and we're going to see how many of them since 2021 are starting at a high level, playing at a high level, more so than what Brad Holmes has brought in. Because you still have to account for Aiden Hutchinson, Jamison Williams, Malcolm Rodriguez, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Terrion Arnold when healthy, Christian Mahogany, Miles Frazier, Isaac Tesla, Tate Ratledge, and Tyleek Williams. Those are the players that were drafted to play a lot of snaps. When you already had your core team built, you use the draft to continue to make it better. We have over 7 All-Pros on this squad. I rest my case. I'm done with it.
Yeah, listen, for these people that have never been in our chat before, it's kind of weird that we're getting new people today.
It's okay. It's all good.
Listen, we're not SOL here, and acting like a child in the chat doesn't help your cause. Swearing in the chat doesn't help your cause. We have an adult, serious conversation, and we try to stay on point with the topic that we're talking about for the day. We're talking about the Lions going from worst to first. If you don't believe they're going to go from worst to first, put it in there, but tell me why and tell me what they can do to fix it so they can go from worst to first this year.
So
that's what we're talking about, solutions, not just blaming someone for something.
On things that people clearly don't know what the hell they're talking about. So I see this. Why are the Rams so much better? Well, let me explain it to you one more time. You weren't here the other day. I compared Brad Holmes to Snead and Roseman.
Yep.
Snead and Roseman both took 7 seasons to even get close to what Brad Holmes has already won. In Brad Holmes' 5 seasons, and in their first 7 or 8 seasons, Brad has more wins, more playoff appearances, and playoff wins than both Snead and Roseman together. It also took those guys 7, 8, or 9 seasons to even win a Super Bowl. They also missed the playoffs for multiple seasons in a row. Multiple. Brad Holmes has now missed the playoffs 1 season. You didn't expect it in 21 and 22, and if you did, you're lying. But the Lions made it in 23 and 24, and this is the first year that you expected to be there that they missed it. So what? It happens. The Eagles missed it, won a Super Bowl the next year. Right? The Rams have missed it, and then they were in the playoffs twice and won a Super Bowl. So the question is, why are they better? They're better because they drafted their team for 7 or 8 seasons and built a great nucleus and foundation that they were able to then stack players on at the last moment before making a Super Bowl run. It takes 7 to 8 seasons. So if you draft players in the first round and you give them a new contract and they're going to be with you for 7 or 8 seasons, those drafts in year 4, 5, and 6 and 7 are the drafts that are going to get you there. You're still going to have that core. Right now, you're going to have this core through at least 2028. So the drafts that we have in 26 and 27 and 28, those are going to be the drafts that get rid of some of the dead weight on the roster, and they're going to get better players than what we have on the roster right now. Plus, the core is only going to be better. They'll be in their prime. Learn roster building, stop playing Madden, and please stop listening to people that don't know what they're talking about. If all they do is post "we need an edge" on their channel for 3 years straight, they don't know what they're talking about. They're grabbing and pulling on your heartstrings. They're taking advantage of you. They're not giving you anything to work with here. They're giving you one thing, and then they're blaming one guy.
And listen, right now, you heard it here first. The Detroit Lions are not drafting an edge with their number 1 pick, with their first round pick.
And you know what? And they could. And they could. And so what? Right? My roster roulette, you can go back to all the receipts. What have I always said?
But they're not going to this year.
No, they shouldn't on paper. But you know what? If an edge slips and that is the best player available, Brad will take him. It would be a mistake in my mind, but that's the way he drafts. And what I will tell you, so the next question that came in, what about all the 3rd round picks that we threw away? What 3rd round picks did we throw away?
For Tesla, they're saying. But you know what? Tesla's got 6 touchdowns. Matthew Golden, the first round pick for the Green Bay Packers, has a whopping 0 touchdowns, and everybody wants to ditch him because they're all saying he's a bust.
Sounds like a pretty damn good pick to me.
Yeah.
Sounds
he's
like
doing just fine.
How much is a first round pick compared to a future draft round pick that was a compensatory and a future draft round pick that was not in the 3rd round? How much are those valued at? I'm asking the question. We know the answer.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you the question, Spice Monkey Mafia. I think that's what that says. What is the value of a future 3rd round compensatory pick? What is the value? Do you know the value? Yeah. Blankets and sippy cups. I love it. And who am I giving 7 years? What do you mean? Who am I giving 7 years?
To Brad Holmes.
You have to give them that long. See, the problem is the Lions have never given their coaches and GMs more than 3 or 4 years. You can't build a successful team that way. Go look at the teams that are successful right now. How long has Andy Reid and the GM been in place? How long has Howie Roseman and Sirianni been in place? How long has Snead and McVay been in place? Go look. The teams that are successful are the teams that have a GM and a coach in place for multiple seasons. Not just 3, but multiple more. Those are the teams that are successful. They're building something. You have to see through the vision. And the vision takes time, right? Because some players get injured. And that throws things off. And there's not always enough backups. Even though that this is the NFL, it's not Madden. You can't just replace an elite player with an elite player. It doesn't work that way. There's something called a contract, and that contract controls what you're able to do. Like for all the people that are saying Jared Goff's going to get traded, do y'all even realize he has a no trade clause? He ain't going nowhere unless he wants to go somewhere. So I'm still waiting for the answer. I asked how much a 3rd round draft pick is worth. Hooker was a 3rd also. Great. What's the point? There was no quarterbacks in that draft that were better than Hooker. Any of them selected after Hooker, and even the ones before Hooker, unless they were a 1st round draft pick, they've all done nothing. Nothing. Not one thing. That was CJ Stroud's draft and Bryce Young's draft, right? Those are the only 2 quarterbacks that had done anything in the league. So it wasn't a wasted pick. We needed a backup. We had to have a backup quarterback. We already selected 4 All-Pros before him. What more do you want? I mean, do you see how stupid that argument is? You selected 4 All-Pros, but Hendon Hooker didn't work out. Get the F out of here, man. Like, seriously, listen to yourself. It's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. We're moving on. You had your 15 seconds. I can see.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, one final thing, because John Desage he made a good statement in here. People aren't criticizing Tesla, but maybe the players or amount of players you could have got with those picks. So you could have got one extra player, right? One extra third next year. Not this year. Next year.
Yeah, because it was a future third rounder.
It's future. And here's the answer. Okay, here's the answer. A future compensatory pick in the third round is essentially the first pick of the fourth round, right? Because there's 32 picks in every round. A compensatory pick is pick 33, pick 34, pick 35, yada, 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 right? Or in this case, 97, 98, 99, whatever. A future third round pick compensatory is worth 50% of a third round pick value, whatever that number is. And because it's a future third round compensatory pick, you can whack it 50% more. So I'm going to throw out a number. It's not factual because I don't have the information in front of me. Let's just say that future third round pick is worth 200 points. Okay? If it is traded in that year, let's say it's worth 200 points. Being a compensatory pick, they're going to shave that at least 25%. Now, trading it in the future, they're going to whack it 50% because it's a future. And because it's a compensatory, they're going to whack it 25 to 50% more. So that goes from 200 points to 100 points to somewhere between 50 and 75. It's worthless. It's a worthless pick from a draft trade standpoint. Now, had you waited until next season and then use that pick to bring in more players, that's great. Here's my question. Are you going to be able to afford all of these third round picks, knowing what you're up against with your draft capital, salary cap wise? Are you going to be able to afford them? Are you going to be able to afford those contracts? And are all those players going to make the roster? So you have a core set of players on the roster already, right? We have about 38 guys going into 2026. So how many of those players are you willing to walk away from that are already part of your core? There's players that the Lions are bringing into 26 that they're going to keep. There may not be room. There's not room for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders as it is. The guys are lucky to make this team. And that's why when, guys like Dan Jackson get injured, safety was playing pretty well. Maybe he could have come back and played, but they shut him down for the year because there's no room for him. There's no room. Guys like Ahmed Hassanin, there's no room for him. There really isn't. That's why they managed him the way they did. It's why they managed a lot of these guys the way they did. Why do you think Josh Paschal never come back? Right? There really wasn't room for him. So they kind of got lucky with the way the injury, bug was going. When it was time to bring him back, he didn't make it back. And there's probably more to that than that meets the eye. So the question is, or the answer really is, there's really never enough room to add all of these guys when you start getting a roster that is thick and it is deep with good football players. So you have to pay attention to all of that. And just saying that, we could have brought more guys in, sure. But are any of them any good? Just because they're in the draft doesn't mean that they're good football players. Just because they're ranked in the third round doesn't mean they're going to be good football players. Like I said, 15% will start. 3% will become elite. Do you have a 15% chance that player is going to start on your roster and he's going to start over somebody else? I don't think so. There's a lot that goes into it. It's never a perfect situation. And the what coulda, shoulda, woulda, and the hindsight 2020 is a game that is so dangerous to play. Even I am not jumping up and down on Brad when I have put out names like Kobe Turner and other names that I would have selected, that I put on my board, that I talked about numerous times, that he missed on. Why am I not harping on him? Why am I not jumping up and down? Because he did an excellent job in every other area. That's why. That's why. All right, what's next? What do you got?
Well, this dude in the chat that's criticizing the team and got you all riled up. Now he's mad because they raised ticket prices and this and that. And I asked him. I asked him.
Are you a season ticket holder?
I said, what section are you in? How much did your tickets go up this year? How many tickets do you have? How long have you been a season ticket holder? And I got nothing, no response. You want to know why? Because the guy doesn't have season tickets and he's complaining just to complain. Tickets did not go up this year.
No, they're not going up for this next year in 26, but buddy, I've had season tickets. This will be my 28th year, and it'll be over 62 years now in the family. So if anyone has a leg to stand on, it's the people that have had season tickets for a long time.
Exactly. The guy doesn't even have season tickets, but he wants to complain about it. I can guarantee it.
And I get it that people want to go to games, and it's hard to go to games. It's expensive to go to games.
He says, I got to pay $1,000 for 3 tickets and not supposed to be frustrated. You're frustrated about secondary tickets. 3 tickets does not cost $1,000 at Ford Field. I'm right down in the end zone, row 9. The tickets are $200 a piece. You're paying secondary prices because you're not a season ticket holder. Become a season ticket holder. Your tickets are way cheaper. Way cheaper.
It's really hard to get them, but every team is going through it. A lot of teams are paying those kind of prices. There's some teams that are cheaper. There's some stadiums that have more seats, and that's why their tickets are cheaper. The Lions have, I think, a fairly small stadium compared to a lot of the teams in the league. 65,000, I think we can hold a max of 69 or 70 with standing room.
Yeah, it's 65,000, and then standing room only is a couple more thousand. I think it's like 67 with standing room only.
All right, so we got off to a tangent there. It's not the way I wanted to start 26.
Just man, it's all this frustration from these fans, and then when you prove them wrong on one thing, then they gotta bring up something else, and then they gotta bring up something else, and it's never good enough. And no matter what we say, it's never going to be good enough. Well, just like our Lions team is never going to be good enough until we win a Super Bowl. And you want to know what's going to happen when we do win a Super Bowl? It's not going to be good enough for somebody because we didn't go 17-0 and win all the playoff games. And we didn't beat everybody by 45 points on every single game. And our quarterback didn't have a perfect passer rating on every game. And our edge defender didn't have 4 sacks on every game and break every record. So it's never, ever, ever going to be good enough for some of these fans. Sorry, that's my tangent for the day.
So like I mentioned, I had to verify it real quick. The Lions have the 30th smallest stadium in the league. 30th smallest. 65,000 seats. They are tied for 30th in the league.
Yeah.
The biggest stadium is MetLife, the New York Giants and Jets, 82,500. And let's see, the Packers.
Packers, I thought, held 85.
Packers are... The hell are they? Packers, where are they at? My eye's not adjusting today. Where the hell are the Packers? Gotta be kidding me. I just saw it. Oh, they're up at the top. I'm looking way down. 81,000. 81,441. They're number 2. Dallas Cowboys, 80,000. Washington Commanders, 79,000. Kansas City Chiefs, 76,000. Broncos, 76. Panthers, 74. New Orleans, 73. So if you go and look at their ticket prices compared to the Lions, I guarantee you they're a little bit less.
You know, my friend DJ Howell, he is Cat Daddy. He's the guy that makes all the big chains for me, and he's a Carolina Panthers super fan. Super cool dude, and he goes to all their games. And you know, there was a point, I think last season or this season, where you could go to one of their games for $25. But now that they're having a little bit of success, he's mad because they're raising their season ticket prices because they're not getting the $20 tickets. They're still pretty comparable to ours because we discussed ticket prices. And theirs are not too far behind us as far as how much they're going to charge for tickets next year. It's a league-wide thing. It's not just the Lions, and everything is going up in price, everything. And to have our Detroit Lions say that next year they're not going to raise prices, I thought was pretty good, because for 4 or 5 seasons in a row, they have raised those prices. So it's not just us, it's all the teams that are raising the prices up.
All right. Let's keep moving forward here. So there was a couple of things I wanted to get into. Cleveland Browns defensive end Myles Garrett. He leads the league right now with 22 sacks, ranks first in the NFL with 124.5 sacks since entering the league in 2017. The second most by a player in his first 9 seasons since Reggie White in 1982. 137 sacks for Reggie. Garrett plays on Sunday at Cincinnati, 1 p.m. He can surpass Michael Strahan's 22.5 sacks in 2021 with the New York Giants, and TJ Watt 22.5 in 2021 with the Pittsburgh Steelers for the most sacks in a season since 1982, when the individual sack became an official statistic. So Michael Strahan right now 22.5. TJ Watt tied it with 22.5. Jared Allen had 22. Myles Garrett sits at 22. I don't even remember who this guy is. Yeah.
Well, do you you're old enough to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that Michael Strahan's should count.
Okay.
Do you remember the game when the Giants played the Green Bay Packers and Brett Favre laid down for that sack?
I don't know if
he laid down and Strahan came over and touched him, and that gave him the sack record at the time. That was the worst flop job ever for a sack, and I don't believe that one should have counted.
I mean, by rule, it's a sack.
That was me and my petty Packers hate that Brett Favre did that because they were buddies.
I mean, I don't know. Were they buddies?
Yep.
Hold on a second. Let me watch it here.
Yeah, because they talked to each other.
He didn't lay down. I'm watching the video right now.
Okay.
He didn't lay down. Strahan was gonna kill him. I mean, he was free off the edge. He was coming in hot, and it was over. And either Brett Favre takes a hell of a hit, or he just does what most quarterbacks do: go down. I don't feel that Strahan didn't deserve it. If you watch it, it was done. What was Brett going to do? Scramble? He still would have probably caught him. What I would call into question is the right tackle, because it didn't look very. It didn't look like he tried a whole lot. It was what I would question, but I don't think that Brett Favre really laid down. I just think he avoided.
Even the commentators at the time said that Brett Favre could have ran away from that sack and could have threw the ball away.
Oh, you
help his buddy out.
You find the audio, and he couldn't have thrown it away without taking a penalty, because he would have gotten intentional grounding. But that's worrying about someone's stats as opposed to playing the game, and that's not how you're supposed to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
You're not worried about somebody's stats. Oh, I got to throw the ball away so he doesn't get the record. You know,
that's what Aaron Rodgers did last week. Aaron Rodgers played to not get sacked.
And how did that work out for him?
Winning that game.
And how did it work out for him?
They could have wrapped up their division, but no.
Okay, so my point exactly. Right? Brett Favre could have played to not give him the sack record and lose the game.
But they weren't playing for anything in that game.
I don't know. Were they?
I don't think so.
Well, you can't say it definitively if you don't know.
I don't know. I just hate the Packers.
Let's not use absolutes if we don't know. That was a 2002 season. I'm interested. Now you got me curious.
Go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I just gotta look. So we'll do NFL standings 2020.
Yeah, for that guy that I timed out. There you go, buddy, right there. That's why I hate Green Bay Packers. I hate their fans online because they do that kind of stupid crap you were doing in the chat.
All right, so all the way back, Green Bay they were 12-4. They're on top of the league.
Ah.
They're 12-4.
What were the Giants though?
Giants. Let's see. I don't think my eyes are working today. They were second in their division, the NFC East, at 10-6.
Okay.
The Eagles were 12-4. So they were a playoff team because you had the San Francisco 49ers were 10-6. They won their division. Tampa Bay was 12-4. They won the South. Lions were 3-13. Go figure. Green Bay was 12-4, but nobody was close in the North. I mean, the Vikings were 6-10. The Bears are 4-12. And so then the Giants and the Eagles made it in because back then I'm pretty sure we only had, was it 6? Pretty sure we only had 6. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, they were in the top 5. So both those teams are playing for nothing really, other than the New York Giants could get over top of. I don't know who won the game, but I do know that the Green Bay was the best in the NFC.
Green Bay won that game.
Did they?
Against the Giants.
Yeah, I just think people, they drive these narratives too much, man. All right, well, here's what else is happening.
I'm rooting for Garrett to break the record this weekend.
Let me get into this.
I want him to hit it.
I hope he does too. He's been exactly what you want.
Strahan can be in second place. I've always hated that Strahan was the sack leader.
Why, man? He was a Giant. He wasn't a Packer. I like Strahan.
The way he got it. The way he got it.
And you're going to die on that hill alone because if you watch the video, I think you'll see.
I watched it live when it happened.
Okay. Gosh darn it. Now I'm going to have to clip this out.
That's all right. Well, I'll watch it later. Don't worry
about it.
No.
Screw it. I'm bringing it in.
Yeah, but you got to watch it in the context of the game, not just the play.
Why?
Because you had to know what was coming.
I don't. It doesn't matter what was coming. Hold on. Oh, that's not it. Here we go. See, he was dead to rights, man.
Oh, sorry, I'm responding to somebody.
Yeah, he was dead to rights.
Let's see it again. Play it again. Yeah, the dude just let him go through so he could have it.
Well, again, we would need to see a wider angle there.
Yeah.
But again, I would be calling the right tackle into question, not far.
See, he was already laying on the ground and he just fell on top of him.
Eric, you're not going to win this one, buddy.
Look at it. He didn't even have to touch him.
Look.
hey, and that shouldn't have counted. He put his full body weight on him.
That
should have been a
That was
penalty.
Look, he put his nuts in his mouth, but that wasn't a rule back then, okay? It wasn't a rule back then.
Oh, I love this segment. It's awesome.
Jesus. You know what? I'm taking a break. We're gonna go to Scotty Montgomery.
Every time you take the field, you want to come out with a better outcome than we did. Of course, we're really disappointed, upset, frustrated, whatever emotion you want to connect to it of, not meeting our own expectations, not only not meeting the expectations and, of our fan base and, the city. Is really, really difficult when you don't do that and you have such high goals for each and everything that you do. But that being said, we got a chance to end the season with a victory against a really good football team that would mean a lot to us. And that's where our focus is. That's where my focus is right now. And then collectively, I know, my guys, just starting this morning and even a couple of days ago, they're rearing to get back on the field and play the game. So that's exactly what we'll do.
How much does that disappointing feeling feel you specifically?
I feel it but that's a part of, competing. There is going to be a scoreboard, and that scoreboard is it really does calculate the way you play. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. So it fills with frustration, especially when you feel personally that you've given a whole lot in everything that you have in all these situations, and you keep going. But who cares, right? You just there's a detail that has to be done, and at the end of the day, the detail is more points than the other team. Unfortunately, this year it didn't happen enough.
Do you feel like it was a switch after the bye week? Like, it seemed like that's when things kind of switched a little bit. What do you feel like changed with this team after the bye week?
I don't know. I haven't had enough time to even look at that, been so focused in on what we're doing now. Times for that will come and we'll be able to see. It could have happened anywhere. It could have, not happened. It may be a play here, a play there. I don't know the answer to that. Of course, that research will be done, and those answers is what we have to come to become a better club.
Have been, resilience, I guess, has been a staple of this team for so long, and it hasn't really been there the last couple of weeks. Some of those losses have piled up. What's the explanation for that?
Really not an explanation. At the end of the day, there's several things that we can point to. In this last game, it was very clear. The resiliency was directly connected to taking care of the football. That was one of the things that we had done a better job at this year. If you look back up until that time, we just didn't do a good job of taking care of the football, not only in critical moments, but in moments where we had a little bit of momentum swing that our defense had did a good job, and we had a chance and opportunity to go. We just didn't take care of the football. So outside of that, and just because it's so recent and so current in my mind, looking at each game before then, there's critical points and times in every game where did we get this first down in this critical situation, third down situation? Did we get this one in a critical fourth down situation? Did we make a play that may have been a spectacular play, but we've seen it made on the other sideline, or we've seen it made by our guys at a different time? So that's what we've been really, really good at when, we play complementary football, but when an opportunity came, whether it's 3rd and 4, 4th and 1, whether it's 1st and 10 in the beginning of the game, we have a look, we have the exact coverage that we want, and things go exactly the way we want, and we just don't necessarily make the play, or the play was not there to be made. Those are the critical things that we've got to be able to dissect and find out, how do we close that small gap? And it's small, and that's what this game is. The teams that make those small catches, you've seen some this past couple of deals, or the small step in the interior or small step on the exterior is the difference in winning and losing. And that's what we got to make sure we take care of.
You don't think it was like, guys getting too, fat and happy, for lack of a better term, like being too comfortable with thinking they were good and not?
Well, I can't speak to them, man. I don't eat but one time a day. So it's not a joke. It's really, you stay hungry. In this business, if you're not hungry, somebody else is hungry, and it shows up. So I can't answer that question. What I do know is that this week, our focus is where it needs to be. We need to play with edge. We've got to dominate in what we talked about in the line of scrimmage. We've got to do things better than we've done in certain areas of the field on both offense and defense. So that's what we got to do. But as far as being fat and happy, I don't know that to be the case. But I also will say that, kind of moving forward, that has no place. I haven't seen it. Don't know it to be true, but I don't think we have those type of guys.
Progress for any organization isn't always linear. So in your experience, how do you squeeze the most out of the opportunity you have in front of you, whether as a player, as a coach? How do you maximize what the next week is before the winter breakup? I
have never taken the field in a game when it was meaningless or not meaningful. Never. I have such a respect for every person that has been or played at Soldier Field. Every person that I look at, any question that any of our guys have, all you got to do is turn. If I turn and look to my right, I see Dan Campbell. I look to my left, I see St. Brown. I look to my front, I see David Montgomery. That's all I need. Put me in as far as I'm concerned, because that is what this game is about. It's about respect, and that's what we're fighting for this week. We got to go out and play for respect, and I got a hell of amount of respect for the coaches on the other side. I got a hell of amount of respect for this club. I got a hell of amount of respect for this game, and if you don't have that, you have no business even walking out there, and that's just as simple as it comes.
Drops are subjective at some level, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody tracks them kind of differently. There is no official stat form. I'm sure you guys track them.
Yep.
I don't know where you kind of land with St. Brown, but I think the eye test shows that maybe his hands weren't as good as they've been previous years. Mm-hmm. Is there anything to that, Scotty? Is there a theme? Was he battling with something? I know he was like on an injury report briefly with the wrist early in the season. It just didn't seem like it was to his standard this season.
Yeah, I would agree. He would agree as well. We don't like putting any balls on the ground. The researchers went into it. Here's the thing about St. Brown, and he does this probably better than anybody else in this league. So we got to correct when it's happening in the game. He's catching 202 balls a day away from it. He is, I really kind of isolated some of those plays to where they were below the waistline, thumbs up, pinkies together, and running through the football. So we got to continue to work, coaching wise, we can work more drills there. Did we? Yes, of course we did. And he is to the standard. We're away from what we're doing of catching the ball. When you have guys that are not catching enough balls, not catching tennis balls, not juggling softballs, doing all these hand-eye coordinations, you really want to get to the bottom of what that is. That's what we'll have to do in this offseason. And I'm sure he'll attack it just the way that we want him to attack it. But more so, it's not a lack of what he did. So we've got to really close that window. If it was a situation to where we went from catching 200 balls a day to maybe 50 balls a day and not seeing it as well, or not just getting high balls, low balls, balls behind, and doing all the things that go into distraction catches, all the things that we do to try to make sure this doesn't happen, is what we do to prevent these things from happening, I should say. And it worked for everybody else. Everybody else kind of took off and caught the ball at a higher level. So that's what makes me, I got to really find out what it is and pinpoint exactly what it was, because, he knows he's not here to make almost every play. He's here to make every play. That's what our expectation is of him. That's what his expectation is. I think some other guys have stepped up in those roles and made a lot of big plays, and I know that he's poised to do the same.
Tesla talked about wanting to get a little more twitchy this offseason,
Yeah.
more separate. What would your sort of, checklist be for him to work on this offseason to come back more?
First thing we've already talked about, we're working on that constantly during the season too, without beating his feet up too much. Short area quickness, the quick ability to separate at the top. Long speed and short speed, this league is the difference between getting open and not. Long speed, deep balls, those are lower percentage throws and catches just because of the level of difficulty that goes into it. But when you start getting into the choice world, the in breakers, the out breakers, it really comes to being able to, being able to separate in 3 steps, plant, gather, turn, and do that with quickness that will match the defensive back steps and his J step and kick out. So that's one of the things that we want to talk about and just speeding that up a little bit. But also he has grown so much in this season. So I got to give him a lot of credit on pad level, on ability to use his hands, pushing back vertical, separating, all the things that, I thought would be a little bit harder for him to come to him. It's coming pretty easily. Now we got to really do a good job of working on that short area quickness. He's seeing the ball at a high level. Going to get the ball has never been really a problem for him. Right now, what I'm liking about him, though, is he's getting the ability to reach out and get the ball. He's creating more of a catch radius, not just this way, but out in front of him. So if people are closing on him because the separation hadn't been quite as great as he wanted it to be, that's his next level of separation, being able to go out and get the football. So really excited about where he is, and just know that the more he separates in those quick areas like that, he'll be in a really good spot.
From your perspective, how challenging was this season? I mean, for Jared, because of at times you didn't have the running game to be able to set.
I got to go back real quick on something. Just hold on.
Of the level of difficulty that goes into it. But when you start getting into the choice world, short area quickness roles and made a lot of, I got to really find out what it is and doing all the things that go into distraction catch work for everybody else. Everybody make almost every play. And I know that he's poised to do the same.
Tesla talked about wanting to get a little more
just know that the more he separates in those quick areas like that, he'll be in a really good spot.
From your perspective, how challenging was this season? I mean, for Jared, because of at times you didn't have the running game to be able to set up the play action, and then also some of the pressure that he got disrupting the timing of everything, since this is such a precision-based offense.
Yes, I said it early in the year, it's completely linked. Everything that we do is linked, and it does start with our ability to control the line of scrimmage and the run game and the pieces, not only that link of that, but the link of guys playing next to each other and becoming one and just being able to play together. So a lot of that does happen. And then, just the separation on the second and third level that we were getting, a little bit more linebacker play down low gives him a little bit more time and to maybe loft balls. He's had to really drill some balls in there, made some great plays on throwing the ball in. And he's still thrown and completed a lot of passes for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns with few interceptions in comparison to the rest of the league. So as much as I might think it looked difficult and been difficult, he's been able to make a way when a lot of guys would have been loved to be in his situation. So we'll continue to work that, no doubt. It does have to be linked. Run game, protection, routes. And he's been really good at just coming in every single day and trying to figure out the way to get past some of those hard times.
One more on
the last one.
Isaac, Scotty. I asked you a few weeks ago just about the value of practice reps, and you said, well, no, it matters that you carry practice into games. It's two pretty better performances for him in terms of usage and production. I don't know how much you believe in like the concepts of momentum, but how much of this can be a launch pad for him to get these opportunities to carry into year two?
I thought his momentum happened really like week 4, week 5, week 6. It's just behind closed doors. You can just start to see the transition in the player. It's very difficult to do what he did because he's playing so many roles. It just doesn't look like he's playing a lot of roles because they're so formation based. And, a guy goes out of the game, he comes in. So you really can't get a good grasp of the complete route tree. Like you play in Saint, he knows his route tree. He knows exactly what he's going to do. So there's 3 or 4 looks that may jump up on him in the game. It doesn't bother him. Whereas that when you do know what you're doing and you get 3 or 4 different looks, but you just haven't experienced them, it slows you down maybe a step. In practice, week 5, week 6, some of those looks started to show up and he was making the correct read on almost all of them, especially when we got down to the red zone. His production went up. Just amount of plays went up probably 4 to 5 weeks ago, started to get him more plays and just, a little bit more prepared in all those situations. But really in the red zone, week 4, 5, and 6, we started to see a guy understand how to work the back end line, how to work off of Mike backers, wheel backers, position himself when he knows the safety is coming down to hit him. So I do think he has built some momentum, but I do think that momentum started before everybody else saw it. And we're just really happy that he is on the trajectory that he is right now.
All right, so I wanted to cut it off there and kind of discuss Scotty Montgomery for a moment because there's a lot of good nuggets in here. There's a lot of good information. Give him half of it. Well, no, give him a third with some dog food. Gunner, go in the house, bud. Go ahead.
Do you think that Scotty Montgomery could be our next OC?
I do. He's been one of my favorites, and
I like the way he talks.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's well informed. I think he's extremely intelligent, and I would pick him over Haley. What I don't want the Lions to do is I don't want them to box themselves in to where we can't lose, Hank. Can't lose Hank because we're not going to make him an OC. Well, here's the thought process for me. If he's not the offensive line coach, it doesn't matter because you will have another offensive line coach. So he's out of that position. He's out of that room. He's no longer involved. And as the offensive coordinator, you depend on your personnel, right, to do all of the jobs independently for each group separately. And then together you devise your plan, you talk about the opponent, you put together the game plan collectively and separately. So if he's not the offensive line coach and he's the offensive coordinator, well, then it doesn't matter. He's out of the room. So I don't want the Lions to box themselves in just to keep Hank and put him in an OC over a guy like Scotty Montgomery that I feel could be the next Ben Johnson, if not better. And I use the term Ben Johnson loosely. I don't think that Ben is this amazing genius that people think that he is. He's great at what he does. I'm not trying to hate on him. I just feel that when you really look at what Ben Johnson is doing, he has taken a lot of things from different coaches, from schemes that have already existed. And a lot of coaches do that. But he's not doing anything different than what other coaches are doing. It's just when you're calling the plays and the personnel that he's had at his disposal. and that was not utilized this year. The type of plays that we were running last year were not utilized. And that is the biggest reason why this offense failed. We went to a more of a West Coast offense. And that's where you're trying to use shorter routes. Dink and dunk is what people like to call it, but shorter routes to get yak as opposed to explosive, get downfield. But our offensive line wasn't able to protect. So there's a lot that goes. I'm not even going to get into it. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
Here's my things on Scotty. Which one of my questions is Scotty the next OC? But when did the change happen was one of the first questions. And what their main question here is, what happened with the offense? Or what happened with the run game? And, was it after the bye? Like, what changed within the offensive structure that didn't allow the run game to set up the pass game? And I think with Scotty, he'll figure it out. Like he said, they haven't had the time to go in and deconstruct everything, pull it all apart, strip it down, see what happened. You don't have time for that in a game week. But after next week, they'll have plenty of time, and they'll be able to figure it out. Dan Campbell is going to be at the front of the line to find a new offensive coordinator, whoever that may be, as opposed to having to wait now until February, right? He'll be able to find somebody earlier, and maybe that's on the team already. I don't know when it changed either. I feel like we just didn't have it this year.
Yeah.
We just
After the
didn't.
bye, it seemed after the bye, there was a big change in this team. You had Gibbs go from 3 touchdowns in a game to 0 touchdowns to 3 touchdowns to 0 touchdowns. And the Lions went win-loss, 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 win-loss. And they coincided with each other. Something just, I don't know if people figured out our run game or what, or they didn't set it up with Montgomery. But the same goes for Montgomery. Anytime Montgomery has scored a touchdown this year, the Lions have won a game.
Yeah, but I mean, you could say every time that Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game, we won the game.
Yeah, every time he got at least 100 yards, we won the game.
Right. So, I mean, it can go both ways.
Yeah.
And I would look at David Montgomery's touchdowns. Where was he getting them? Was he getting them near the goal line? Was he just walking it in? And that's when we won the game, when you're already up by a lot and you're just getting kind of fed around the goal line? Or were they, was it hard working, touchdowns where he was part of the game plan and he was a big part of the game plan and then scored a touchdown on a long drive? I think we have to analyze all of that. And I haven't been able to analyze all that. So those stats that, like you just brought up, that's what a lot of fans will cling to. And they'll say, look, we didn't use them enough. Well, break it down.
I kind of think we overused Gibbs. We didn't use Montgomery to set him up. Like we got to go. Well, they need to look at what they did in 24 and look what they did in 25. Look at what worked with the run game and look what didn't work with the run game. Why did it work so well in 24?
I can tell you why. Without even stripping it down, I can tell you the biggest factor, offensive line.
Yes.
And not only the offensive line, but when you have an all-pro as a right tackle, an all-pro as a right guard, and an all-pro as a center, you're damn straight your run game's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think that the Lions didn't run far more center right, you're crazy, because they did. They ran far more center right, and then they would confuse defenses and go to the left. When they're setting up overloading on the left side of the defense, they would turn and go the other way. You would hear Jared Goff switch the play. You would see Gibbs or Montgomery switch sides, and the play is going to the left. Because they overloaded thinking, well, this team always goes to the right side of the offense. We're going to go load up over there. And no, we would switch it. Even with having light personnel on the other side. The other thing that I felt was big was Sam Laporta and Brock Wright.
Yeah.
You didn't have Brock Wright's blocking downfield. You didn't have Sam Laporta's outlet valve, safety valve in the seam, and those are huge. Because there you're able to set up the pass, you're able to move the chains, and you didn't have that anymore.
Yeah, we miss Sam Laporta and Brock Wright more than anyone knows.
No, I think more. I think more than what people are giving it credit to be.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to blame the O-line, but I'm telling you,
which is a big part of it.
Missing those 2 tight ends on top of that just compounded the problem a millionfold.
Yeah. So the fat and happy statement in there, did you hear what that was about?
What do you mean?
Scotty was asked about getting fat and happy. I kind of missed it.
Oh, I missed it too.
Was he talking about St. Brown and Jamo and players getting big contracts and getting fat and happy?
Yeah, probably.
I if you guys know what it was in the chat, let us know. But I kind of missed it. But here's what I'm going to say. Assuming what they meant there, did St. Brown get paid and now he's not working as hard? Did Jamo get paid and he's not working as hard?
I'd say they're working harder.
I don't know. I don't know, and I'm never going to speculate on a man's work ethic. I would say that they're pros, and St. Brown has worked his ass off no matter what. It seems like he's always worked his ass off. He's always played when he was injured. I mean, you've heard the stories, going back with the HBO specials and receiver and that. The dude had hand, foot, mouth disease was out there playing. I don't know. I think next year's gonna tell us a lot more about Jameson Williams. But there's something that they did talk about in here that I do want to touch on. And, well, 2 things. St. Brown, was he injured or not? Was he battling the wrist injury? Was that a big reason as to why his performance dropped? With drops, literally.
I've never seen so many from St. Brown.
Well, and that's what makes me believe that maybe the wrist was causing some of it. But at the same time, St. Brown just did not look like he was in the right position. And you could blame that on Goff. You could blame it on the pass. You could blame it on the route. I've blamed it on the route sometimes. As I watched the route, it looks like a lazy turn. It doesn't look like a dig and go, right? Or, the point gather and turn, as Scotty, mentioned. Sometimes it just looked lazy. And if you're not selling the route and you're not getting the separation, it's kind of hard for Goff to put the ball on the numbers.
Yep.
Or for you to get to the right spot, your landmark. The landmark is where that ball is going. And I don't think a lot of fans understand that either. I think that they just think that, the ball goes to where it goes to the player. No, the ball goes to the landmark. And that is where the player is supposed to get to. Hell, the ball's usually out of his hands before they're even looking, before they even turned. The ball's out. And that's why getting to the landmark and you're turning last minute, late hands, late eyes, and you're catching the ball. That's why it's always worked so well for St. Brown and Jared Goff, because they have such a good relationship. They could do it with their eyes closed. But then talking about Tesla, I thought this was a great statement by Scotty. And long speed versus short speed. We know that Tesla has the long speed. We know that Jamo has the long speed. But this segment is exactly what I've been talking about with Jamo. Not Tesla, but Jamo. When you look at his separation this year, it is terrible. He's got some of the lowest separation numbers on the team. And that, I believe, has a lot to do with his short speed. His feet maybe not quick enough, and he's not able to turn in and out of those routes quick enough and get that, sell that route and get that separation. Tesla is battling some of the same things. He's also a rookie, right? And if you know that's a problem, though, this is where I have a problem. If you know that that's an issue and it's not developed yet in Tesla, or maybe it's not as developed as it should be with Jamo, then why are you putting them in that situation? Why don't you put them in the routes that they run well and maximize that, as opposed to putting them in situations where maybe they're not doing as well and then the play doesn't work out? Food for thought, I guess. I don't know. There's a reason why I'm here and not over there. And then Goff, I thought it was a good question. How difficult was the season without having the run game? And I think that we can all agree that you need all of your parts and pieces working together. You can't build a V12 engine with 10 spark plugs. You just can't. You can't be missing a couple of coil packs. You need everybody. And when your offensive line is nowhere near what it was last year, You can't be down additional players and hope that it's going to work. So this year for me on the offense, great. We scored points, scored a lot of points. We didn't score points when we needed to, and it's not Goff's fault. It's not all Goff's fault. He's not absolved of any blame, but I think the large blanket of blame is just that. It should be cast over the entire offense, and it should be cast over the play calls. What do you think?
I really think that Goff was probably our best player this year. You can say that about Gibbs, but Gibbs disappeared in a lot of games. Goff, whether he had the personnel, whether he had a run game, whether he didn't have a run game, he didn't have too many bad games this year. And you can put this last game on Goff if you want to, but I'm going to tell you right now, Goff didn't hike the ball 5 yards to the right 2 times during the game. Now, Goff had 2 interceptions. You can put those on him.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you can put it on the wide receiver that was supposed to run a different route as well. We don't know. So, to me, I think Goff had one hell of a season. I think he played better this year than he did last year. With the supporting cast that he had this year compared to last year, I think he was better. So I have no problems with Goff whatsoever this year. I think he's just going to keep getting better. And next year, watch out NFC North because he's coming.
I think Goff is just steady Eddie.
Yep.
I think that's all I could really say about him. I don't know that I could say he had a better season or worse season, than last season. I just think it's
it has to be better though, because his supporting cast is half of what it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't
have a tight end for most of the season. He doesn't have an offensive line for the entire season. Half the season he's missing his left tackle. Half the season he's missing his center. Half the season he's missing his left guard. And he puts up stats that are as good or better than last year.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, let's take a quick look at the injury report. Injury report, first look at it here on Thursday, January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
This came out this morning. Lions. Alex Anzalone has a concussion. I did not know he had a concussion.
Yeah, he went out of the last game.
He did not participate. Coyote Awasika, illness. He's a DNP. Tristan Colon has a wrist injury. He's a DNP. Thomas Harper has a concussion. He's a DNP. Christian Mahogany is sick. He's a DNP. Ali McNeel, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all DNPs. Ali McNeil's been suffering from an abdomen issue for several weeks now. Penei Sewell had another ankle injury in this last game. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a knee and an ankle. If the Lions are going to do something in this game, we'll find out. We'll find out after today's practice.
Yeah,
because
I wouldn't be surprised if Amon-Ra does not play.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what they say. The Bears on the other side, pretty healthy. Limited or full is Josh Blackwell, Luther Burden, Nick McLeod, Ozzy Trapillo, Olamide Zacchaeus. Here's a statement. Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Johnson found his Sam Laporta in Colston Loveland. He has his better version of Jamo in Luther Burden. A lot of people are saying that Luther Burden is better than Jamo. Probably is. I would say that him as a rookie is insane with what he's doing.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Receiver and tight end for the Chicago Bears has at least 40 receptions, and they all have at least 600 yards.
I mean, that's spreading the ball around, right? That's being a mixologist.
Exactly. Yep.
That's exactly what you want. You go look at the Lions stats and it's like, what the hell's going on? We need more guys getting more passes. And that's why, I'm sorry, players like Khalif Raymond, you got to go. If you're not going to be a huge participant in the offense and all you're doing is special teams, it's not enough for me.
Yeah.
Your third wide receiver needs to be on the field all the frickin' time. And your third wide receiver needs to be a pretty damn good receiver. And that'll be Isaac Tesla next year. But between those three, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Isaac Tesla, I think they'll be just fine. I don't know that Jamison Williams makes it through, though, without being traded. And you know what? I've said it many times before, and I've caught holy hell about Jamison Williams. I think that he's done much better. I think that he has matured a lot more over the last year, but it's not enough. I get it that he's electric, and I get it that, you know, he can make big plays, but where the hell has he been when Amon-Ra St. Brown is dropping passes and we need someone else to pick it up? Where's he been? Because I don't need the flash, right? There's one thing that you will always rely on as a coach or as an evaluator, and that is when you look at flash in the pan, you don't want that. You want consistency. I don't care if you're picking up 3, 4, 5 yards, but you're always there, you're always on time, you're catching the ball, you're doing more with less. And then when the time comes and you need to catch a deep ball or you need to make a big play, that you're able to do that. But if all you're doing is taking a big pass every 30, 40 passes, that's not enough. And so you get a bunch of stats because you got a bunch of big passes. That's not enough for me. Because it definitely didn't turn around the season. So I need more. And I would say that Jamo should be one of the first up for trade if the Lions really want to do something with the draft picks that people seem to be very bent about. The third round draft picks. Go trade Jamo and go get yourself a couple of draft picks. Get rid of that money so that you can pay other players that you're going to need to pay. But right now, the Lions need a total reset as far as their secondary, and we don't have enough draft picks. And nor should we, but I'm just saying we don't have enough. But we have the ones that we should have, but we don't have enough if we're trying to reset right away. I don't know that free agency makes sense. Especially for a wide receiver. I don't think it makes sense. More often than not, free agency wide receivers don't work out. They usually don't. Few and far between. The drafted guys work out much more than your free agency guys. But as far as the injury report goes, the Bears are really healthy. The Lions are really beat up. Let's talk about Ali McNeel for a moment. He's caught the wrath of this fan base, or some of the fan base, saying that he's trash, right? And he hasn't done squat this year. We came back off a major knee injury and then almost immediately gets an abdomen issue and has been fighting through it for at least the last 4 weeks. Do you think Ali McNeel is on this team next year, and or do you think that he needs to be upgraded?
No, he'll be here next year. You have to give him at least a year to get over that injury. I think they brought him back too quick, honestly. Should have gave him 4 or 5 more weeks before you even thought about bringing him back. But these guys want to get back as fast as they can. He tore his ACL, and because he's favoring something or doing whatever, he does something to his abdomen. So in my opinion, I just think he tried to do too much too soon, and give him a full off season. Let him get back. I think he'll get right back to where he was. It takes a while with ACLs. You know, not everybody is Adrian Peterson having 2,000 yards the year you come back after 9 months from an ACL. That's not the norm. And everyone expects that when a player blows an ACL, that they're just going to come back and be amazing the next year because surgeries are getting better. The player still has to put in the work, still has to do the rehab, and then when they're back, they're not the same. It takes a while to get back in. So a full season, I'm going to say, just this season's a wash. Wait till next year. If he's bad after next year, then you can think about moving on.
I would say that. I mean, I've always said that. Anytime you come back from an injury, the next year is usually what I call a throwaway season.
Mm-hmm.
But for Ali McNeel, I mean, he was injured in December of 24, and then he returned to practice in October of 24. I think he returned to the field in November after the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So he was out for 11 months. I mean, that's a 9 to 12 month max deal there,
Yeah. Well, he came back before Rodrigo.
Yeah, so I think again I think that's roster management. You know that there wasn't a spot for Rodrigo right away.
Yeah.
And if there's not a spot, then why bring him back when he's already on a list that helps your roster?
But he came back looking healthier than Aleem did when Aleem came back.
I don't know that I could say that because I didn't see anything from Rodrigo.
He's been out there on special teams tearing it up.
I just haven't seen enough though. Defensively,
Yeah.
That's different. Being a gunner or gunning down the field on special teams is way different than playing defense.
Yeah.
Final things you want to get into today? Is there anything that was really on your list that I'm missing?
No, not really. But I'm going to have to make you eat some crow.
Who's that?
You.
With what?
You were totally wrong about Michael Strahan today. And anyone that voted the wrong way on that poll,
I just want to give you a chance to kind of put.
Why would we be wrong?
Because I'm going to show you right now. Brett Favre did give up a sack to Michael Strahan to help Strahan achieve the NFL single season sack record. This play occurred in a game where Favre faked a handoff to allow Strahan to record a significant sack, which contributed to Strahan's record of 22.5. While some view this as an inauthentic assist, Favre himself later expressed regret for the play, stating that he was trying to close out the game and had no intention of hurting Mark Gastineau, the previous record holder. And
Yes.
there's all sorts of stuff on here. Favre offers regrets for infamous Strahan sack fallout. Michael Strahan's sacks record controversy explained. There's all sorts of articles.
Eric, that's all opinions.
Dude, at the time, it was everywhere.
I don't care.
Everywhere.
I don't care. It's number one, it's all opinions. Number two, Favre is not expressing regret saying that he allowed the play to happen. No, he was trying to finish the game by that play call to be done with the game, and it turned into a sack. He's not expressing regret saying that I gave it to Strahan, that I,
he's admitting
did
that
it on
he did
purpose. No, he's not. You're reading it wrong.
Yeah, or even on NBC Sports, maybe it crossed my mind to help Michael Strahan.
Okay, and is that valid, Eric? Do we have a direct quote from Brett Favre?
That's a direct quote from Brett Favre in quotations. Maybe it crossed my mind to help Michael Strahan get the sack on that play.
Hold on.
From NBC Sports. I'm telling you, he did it on purpose.
It sounds like something that's on Facebook.
No. This is NBC Sports.
On Facebook, right?
No.
Yeah.
On NBC Sports Pro Football Talk right here.
Let's see.
Yeah, and former Jets defensive end Mark Gastineau was accosting former Packers quarterback Brett Favre for taking a dive to help former Giants defensive end Michael Strahan set the single sack record in 2021. Favre has taken to Twitter to tell his side of the story. And Favre says, I booted out of a run thinking it would be wide open. Saw Strahan standing there and I ducked down. The game was over. There was no need for me to do anything spectacular. It probably wasn't Michael's best sack or tackle for loss.
Right. So he's, again, not admitting that he did anything. And where you're reading here that it says, maybe it crossed my mind. That is just an errant quote that is just stuck in there. That is just an errant quote. And what that is from is the dust up between Favre and Gastineau. So there's no direct quotes from Brett Favre that ever said he did that on purpose. The only thing he did on purpose was try to end the game. But if you watch the play, I wouldn't put it on Favre. I would put it on the right tackle.
I would. Yeah. But Gastineau, like he got into it with Favre at like some like card signing thing or something, actually had words with him. So Mark Gastineau believes with me.
Yeah. So Attila, these are all opinions. Like all of this stuff that is online is a lot. It's all opinions written by people. That's why I said we need direct quotes.
Oh, this is all direct quotes right from Favre. This whole thing.
What whole thing?
There's a whole bunch.
I was just reading the same thing you were.
Yeah, this is all in quotes from Favre's Twitter
page. But the way you're saying that, just like yesterday when you said, what was it about? It was the wasn't it the quote about Jared Goff? About how Jared Goff said that Frank Ragnow, that he was going to be talking to Frank Ragnow, and the way that you read that, the way that someone wrote that, I said was totally wrong. Yeah, if you listen to it, if you listen to what Jared Goff said, that quote was never said like that. But see, what journalists do is they take this part of the quote and they take this part of the quote and they mesh it together, and it creates a whole new narrative. It's okay to do that, but if you don't talk about it and straighten it out, you're giving fans a false sense of what really happened. And so that's why, like, when I've called out certain writers in Detroit media and I said, where are your links? Where are your sources? Where is the time? Which game did that happen from? Which post-game media are you referring to? Because I want to go hear the audio for myself. And they get butthurt about that because they know what they're doing. They know that they're taking this and mashing it and creating something that is totally false for clicks. See, that's why I'm public enemy number one, because I won't accept all of these false narratives that are being driven for clicks. I want facts, and they don't give you all the facts. There's very few writers out there that will put a fact in their writing, which is this is sourced from this time and this time and this time. They won't do it. They won't do it because it'll disprove what they're writing. They heard it, they have it, they were there, or maybe they weren't there, but they have the writing, and they won't do it. So with the same thing about Favre, what you're reading, unless you have a direct audio source and can hear it for yourself.
Well, this is what he directly wrote on his Twitter that Brett Favre did.
Well, again, show me.
Yeah.
Show me.
Here.
Right here, where? But that's what I'm saying. Unless you have something that's valid that you can point to,
it's really long. Yeah. So this is what he wrote exactly. Back in 2002, when Michael Strahan sacked me at the end of the game that we had wrapped up, I was in no way trying to hurt Mark Gastineau. Favre wrote, I was trying to close out the game and squeeze the last bit of fun out of a hard-fought game.
Yeah, I read that.
I booted out of a run thinking it would be wide open to Strahan. The game was over. There was no need for me to do anything spectacular. It probably wasn't Michael's best sack or tackle for loss. In a different game or situation, I would have made a bigger effort to avoid the sack or tackle for loss. But at no point was I thinking about hurting Gastineau. Maybe it crossed my mind to help Strahan. I didn't think it through. That wasn't my forte at the time. I just wanted to have fun and compete. In retrospect, I understand how Gastineau feels. We played a brutal game. Gastineau played during an era where guys didn't make generational wealth. I see how being the sack king would elevate his value at card shows, strengthen his case for the Hall of Fame, increase his demand as a public speaker. I had no way of knowing that then. I realize now the potential financial implications because football is far more business orientated than me or Mark when me or Mark played. There was no malice on my part. Mark was a great player. My understanding is he's a great guy and fun teammate, a guy who played with the kind of joy and passion I tried to mimic. I understand his frustration, but I'm not his enemy. A while back, he saw me at a card show and got his frustration off his chest. It's not the kind of moment that should be filmed or released. It was a private moment of frustration between two old football warriors. I have a great deal of respect for Mark. I hope that one day he joins me in the Hall of Fame. He earned it. Look at his numbers. He eclipsed 20 sacks twice and had 19 in another year. Mark definitely left an indelible mark on the game. I hope this controversy brings attention to just how great Mark Gastineau was. He belongs in Canton. And then it goes on to say, Favre sort of admits he was helping Strahan. Still, Favre insists he never considered the impact it might have on Gastineau. It's easy to accept Favre's position that he just wasn't thinking about it that way. Favre was clearly respectful and friendly to Gastineau in their encounter. Gastineau was determined to give Favre a piece of his mind after holding it in for more than 2 decades, and he did. So the bottom line, there's no place in football for helping someone achieve a statistical milestone. The player either earns it or he doesn't. What Favre did for Strahan is no different than a Giants defender deliberately whiffing on a Week 18 tackle as the Eagles running back Saquon Barkley tried to set the single-season rushing record. Conduct like that tarnishes the achievement and makes everyone involved look bad. Deep down, Favre knows it. Strahan probably does too.
Okay, so what I got out of that is I didn't hear one admission from Brett Favre. Is there or is there not?
Yes.
Where? Where did he say I intentionally gave him that sack?
He's not going to come out and say that.
Exactly, because he didn't.
He did
unless it says I intentionally did that for Strahan to get that sack. I'm sorry. Like everything else that has been written is garbage. Yeah, that is your opinion.
He did.
That is your opinion, though.
Opinion.
That's your opinion.
Oh, yes. 100%.
But what you're reading, though, by the way, so what you're reading here on NBC, let me copy and paste this in. There's no eating crow, whoever this Wilson idiot is. So what you're reading, when you look at all of this, it's bits and pieces. See, when quotes are separated, those are bits and pieces merged together. So you have this part from this part, you have this part from that part, and they're not all one link. Like they're not all one giant quote. So, if I take bits and pieces of this show and just blend it together, I could make it totally sound like something totally different. That tweet that you're reading right here, I'll post that in the chat too. You guys can make it up for your own mind. Here's my opinion, okay? Here's my opinion based on everything that Eric read. He has the right to his opinion. You guys all have the right to your opinion to believe what happened. I watched the film. I showed you the film. What I see is a right tackle that completely whiffed on Strahan. That's what I see.
You got to go back in history when it happened, and this was a league-wide story for weeks.
What was a league-wide story?
That he flopped and let him have that sack.
Again, that is what the NFL does. They will take that little microcosm of someone's achievement and blow it up because every writer wants their piece. Every writer wants their clicks. Every writer wants their chance to be at the top of the page.
The only thing I'm trying to say today is go Cleveland Browns. Let him get that sack this weekend, and don't have it be a flop job. Whoever they're playing,
Cincinnati, right?
The Cincinnati, yeah. So Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, don't just flop. Do whatever you can to not get that sack. But I hope it happens.
Okay,
I
so
hope Myles Garrett breaks that record and breaks it properly.
okay, so let me just throw this into the mix, because you believe so wholeheartedly that Michael Strahan got that sack record illegitimately.
Yes,
right.
It should belong to T.J. Watt.
Well, 20 some odd years later. Then why don't you want the Cincinnati Bengals to flop?
I don't want it to be on a flop because Myles Garrett hasn't had a flop one all year. He's earned them. I want these players to earn these things, not.
I'm gonna.
You know, it really sucks.
I'm gonna turn this upside down for a moment.
It also really sucks that Strahan did it in 16 games. TJ Watt did it in 17, and it sucks that Myles Garrett's going to do it in the 17th game too. I don't like that either.
No, they should be separate awards.
Yeah.
Or the sack number should have to be more. When I look at what Strahan did, I mean, yeah, he had one crazy good season, 22.5. The year before he had 9.5. The year before he had 5.5. The year before 15, then 14. And then 2 years later, after that record, he had 18.5. So it's pretty crazy that he had 21.5, and everyone is calling the final sack that there's something wrong with it. What about the other 21.5? How many other quarterbacks just went down?
None. He earned all the other ones. It's just that last one.
You say that, but you didn't watch every sack today and see how many. You can't remember 21.5 sacks and how many quarterbacks just went down on Strahan.
No.
There's no way you could remember that.
No.
So you can't say definitively none, right? Here's my thing. How many quarterbacks went down for Aiden? How many quarterbacks were already on the ground and he just tapped them?
Oh, yeah, that happened a couple times.
Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford.
So should we yank those away from Aiden too?
The easiest sack in the world.
Should we yank them away from Aiden?
Well, you said that they shouldn't count the same.
I'm just saying, like there's been times where Aiden was having this crazy year before he got injured, yet a majority of those sacks either happen when there's 10 people around the quarterback and he just happens to get the tap out.
Attila, you're hilarious.
You know what I'm saying?
Got some good laughs in today. Anyway, I like this. Told you it was going to be the best show of the year.
Jesus criminy. Eric has a perfect memory. Yeah. The Saint. Yeah.
Really. No.
I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch every Strahan sack today, and I'm gonna have a report for you tomorrow. Jesus. I'm not eating no crow because here's why. Brett Favre has never admitted it, not once. You could speculate that something happened, right? He did go down, but I'm still blaming the right tackle. It was just that's what he did. Totally whiffed on the dude. But we were watching it in super slow-mo too, so we got to see the wide angle.
Yeah, you got to watch the actual gameplay. Not
I hope that NFL Pro goes back that far. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I don't know if they don't. It goes back to 22. It's gonna take a minute to find.
I'm with Eric. The fix was in.
Could have been.
But just to have that hanging over the, I just want to see the record broken. So that controversy can be put to bed because it's been hanging on for way too long.
So now I have to go and watch every single sack of.
With 17 games,
I got to watch every sack now. Myles Garrett too.
Yep.
Got to see how many laydowns he had.
Team Eric for the win.
Whatever. You can win day one, my friend, but we got 364 more. All right, it's been fun. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy New Year to everybody. I do know this, though. It is a new year for the Lions, too. So I would love to see a lot of Lions fans just move on. Like, I know we got one more game, and this one's going to hurt the most unless we win. This one, for me, is going to hurt the most. Just like Eric hates the Packers. Like, I don't know why people hate on me because I hate the Bears. I hate the I live closer to Chicago. He lives closer to Packerland, right? Mm-hmm. I used to work. I ran and opened up a restaurant in Saugatuck where owned by Chicagoans, right? And all I had was Chicagoans down there. And so trust me, I've heard it. I've been through it. I don't like the Bears. Never have. He doesn't like the Packers. That's great. We've got 2 out of the 3 teams covered. But anyway, I want to see Lions fans move on, man, because this hate breeding that's going on and the hate spewing towards our players, like that is not how you keep a good team together. That is not how you attract free agents. So for all of those people that want free agents to come to this squad, let me tell you something. Free agents don't want to come to Detroit for a couple of reasons. They didn't before because we had a losing culture. Now that we have a winning culture, it's really trying to get them to understand that Detroit is not as bad as what people are saying, which they're not living in Detroit anyway. They're living on the outskirts of Detroit, in the super ritzy areas, so they don't even have to worry about it. They travel into Detroit, they park in a high secured lot, and they go in and play a game. They don't even practice in Detroit. They practice in Allen Park. So it's getting those players to believe that coming to Detroit won't kill their career. It won't now because we have a winning culture. But if you want players to come here, then you better stop getting on Twitter and saying a bunch of BS to these people, right? And calling them out, calling them names, calling their mother and kids, whatever. Like, if you don't agree with their play, if you say something intelligent, dude, like, why did you do this on this play? Like, what happened here? Why did you whiff on that play? Because what they're reading is just hate. You're not even intelligent enough to know what they did wrong. The ones that are talking all the shit, right? So prove that you know football. Try to have a conversation with them. Or go back. Yeah, better yet, go watch the film. But stop breeding all the hate, because if you want people to come here, they have to feel like they're wanted, man. They have to feel like they're not going to go through what these players are going through.
Speaking about free agents wanting to come to Detroit, did you see what DJ Reader put on his Twitter?
When? Today?
I think last night. That this is the 3rd time he's had to replace the windows in his vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
People broke into it.
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with fans. I don't.
No. I think that's just some.
And I was going to respond to it, but my question is where is it happening?
Yeah, was it in a bad area or?
Well, damn well he doesn't live in a bad area.
No.
So where is it happening?
Yeah, because they live in gated communities, and it'd be impossible for somebody to go in and do that 3 times in your private residence, I would think.
Yeah.
But if it's happening, and if it's fan driven, man, shame on them.
Yeah, that's not cool.
I
I would just love to know where it went down, because it shouldn't be happening in Allen Park. That's all gated. It shouldn't be happening in Detroit. That's all gated. Where is it happening? You parking on the side of the road somewhere? Does your license plate say DJ Reader on
it? Maybe he's got it. Got a big cutout of him on the side or something.
Jesus, I don't know. I love DJ Reader. I think he's great. I think I don't think he's the same player that he was, but I don't think that we could have asked him to do much more than he already has. And whether he moves on or not, I wish him nothing but the best. It is what it is. You can't blame him for this season. So, all right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day one.
Happy New Year.
Day one of 365. All right. Happy New Year. See you later. Bye-bye. Maybe.
Yeah. On my phone was Peyton Manning. He said, Jeff, I feel your pain. Will you join me in exorcising the curse of Bobby Lane? Just like that, we started winning. Just like that, we were playoff bound. Just like that, way up in heaven, Bobby Lane turned around. Say goodbye to all that sorrow. Say goodbye to all that pain. Say goodbye. Curse of Bobby Lane. Everybody.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down.